All right, let's just get right into it. Have you ever spent, I don't know, ages crafting what you thought was the perfect prompt for an AI, only for it to spit back something completely useless? Yeah, you are not alone. It's got to be one of the biggest frustrations of working with this amazing, but sometimes maddening new tech.
So why is it so much work? Well, the reason it's so frustrating is because we're basically forced to do something called entropy reduction. Now, I know that sounds super technical, but stick with me. All it really means is that our human thoughts, they're messy, they're complex, they're high entropy. And to get an AI to understand us, we have to do all this painstaking work of translating that mess into clean, simple, low entropy instructions that a machine can actually follow. But what if I told you there's a formal discipline, one that's been around for decades, dedicated to solving this exact problem? It's called context engineering. And honestly, it's the key to unlocking how we can communicate with machines way, way more effectively. And get this isn't some new buzzword that just popped up with the whole AI boom. No way. Context engineering is a field that's been quietly evolving for over 20 years. It's been fundamentally shaping how we interact with every machine in our lives, from, the early days of personal computers all the way to the AI agents we're using right now. So let's talk about the context problem. It's all about bridging this massive cognitive gap. The core challenge has always been the same. How do we connect us, carbon-based intelligence, with our machines, the silicon-based intelligence? Well, context engineering? That's the bridge. That's what spans the gap. All right, let's engineer our intentions. To really get this, we got to travel back in time a bit, back to how we talked to computers in the 90s. In the very first era of context engineering, guess who had to do all the work? Us, the humans. We were the ones who had to bend and twist and shape our thoughts just to fit the rigid logic of the machine. This slide really nails the shift, right? Back in Era 1.0, we were basically intention translators. We had to take our goals and meticulously, almost painfully, translate them into a super rigid format that a computer could understand. But now, in Era 2.0, our role has totally changed. We've become instructors. We can just express what we want conversationally, and the AI, it does all the heavy lifting of figuring out what we actually mean. Okay, so the crucial thing to understand about Era 1.0 is that context was super limited. We're talking simple, structured signals like your phone's GPS location or the time of day. The system was context-aware, but, and this is key, it wasn't context-cooperative. Think about it. It could trigger a simple rule, like silencing your phone when you get to the office. Why? Because it knew where you were. But it had absolutely no idea what you were doing there. Huge difference. All right, the 4 eras of context. Let's take a journey through machine intelligence. So how does all this fit into the bigger picture? Well, you can think of the entire history and future of context engineering as this journey through 4 distinct eras, and each one is powered by a major leap in machine intelligence. So here's the evolution. We've already made the jump from that painstaking translation work to just, instructing an AI in plain English. That's a huge leap. But the next step, Era 3.0, is a future where the AI understands the entire scenario. I'm talking not just what we say, but the subtle social cues, our emotional state, what's happening in the room around us, and then you get to the speculative Era 4.0, where it might even help us create entirely new context and worlds to explore. Wild stuff. And here's the big takeaway from all this. There's a really simple but powerful relationship going on. The smarter the machines get, the lower the interaction cost for us. And what is that cost? It's our time, our mental energy, our frustration. Right now, we're smack in the middle of Era 2.0, dealing with what's called an initiative agent. But we are right on the cusp of Era 3.0, the reliable collaborator. Okay, so how does AI actually manage all this context? Let's look at the modern AI's memory toolkit. The best way to think about it is like a computer's operating system. The big AI model itself, that's the CPU, the brain. And its context window, that's the RAM. It's super, super fast, but it's also limited, and it's temporary. So context engineering is basically the process that decides what important stuff gets loaded into that RAM so the AI can get the job done right. And this whole process happens in 3 main stages. Step 1 is collection. The agent is just gathering up raw information from everywhere: text, images, sensors, your user history, you name it. Then comes the really crucial part, step 2, management. This is where it processes all that raw data and organizes it into a useful memory. And finally, step 3 is usage. It has to pick and choose the exact right piece of context to apply at the perfect moment to actually do something for you. Now, for me, the most fascinating part is the management stage, which uses this really cool process called self-baking. Okay, think of it this way. After you have a long chat with an AI, it can take that whole messy conversation, all that raw context, and bake it down into a neat little summary or a few key takeaways. It's not just storing the words you said, it's actually creating structured, useful knowledge from it. And that right there is the difference between just having a memory and actually learning something.
So what happens when you have a whole team of AIs working together? How do they share context? Well, they have a few different ways. Sometimes they just embed it in their prompts, basically telling each other what they did. Other times, they exchange these really structured messages, kind of like a formal report. And one of the coolest methods is using a shared memory, like a digital blackboard, where one agent can write down a discovery, and all the others can see it and build on it. It's all about collaboration. All right, now for the really fun part, the future. Let's look to the horizon, where this whole relationship between us and the machines completely transforms, moving way beyond just giving instructions and into something like a true partnership.
So, what's this next leap in context look like? Well, in Era 3.0, the AI becomes a genuine collaborator. It'll get the subtle stuff, social cues, our emotional states, the whole vibe of a situation. But then you have the speculative Era 4.0, where the roles might actually flip. The AI, with its kind of God's eye view, becomes what the source material calls a considerate master. Now, that sounds intense, but it doesn't mean a dictator. Think of it more like an expert guide who might understand our own intentions better than we do. One that proactively helps us think in new ways. Kind of like how AI has already taught the world's best Go players these incredible, superhuman strategies they never could have imagined on their own. The authors of this paper leave us with this really powerful idea. A person is the sum of their contexts. And it kind of echoes what the philosopher Karl Marx said, that our essence is the ensemble of our social relations. And when you think about it, today, so many of our social relations, so much of our context is digital. It's shaped by every single click, every message, every interaction we have online. So that leaves us with this final kind of mind-bending question. We might never be able to upload a human mind, but our context, that can be preserved. All our conversations, our decisions, our unique patterns of thought, that can live on. So if our context is, in a way, a lasting form of our knowledge, our memory, our identity, what does it even mean when that digital version of us can continue to interact with the world long after we're gone?